Hey, welcome to episode number 66 of the Between Two Brands podcast. Still your host, Bill Petrie. Glad you're here and glad we are in spring. Spring has definitely sprung, so I am in short sleeve weather. I like that. I'm not too short Billy today, but that's okay. Hey, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and pay the rent before we jump into the podcast, shall we? If you haven't noticed, there has been a ton of changes in our industry. Sometimes it feels like daily. Now, from big distributor moves to supplier consolidation, I don't know about you, but I have a hard time trying to keep up with it all. And frankly, that's why I want to start the podcast today talking about something we don't talk often enough about in our industry, and that is stability. Now, with all the changes that happen on a regular basis, it's important to talk about the companies that are established, stable, and strong. And Shepenko is absolutely that company. For over 90 years and 4 generations of family ownership, Shepenko has genuinely cared about the success of their clients. And that, my friends, is the definition of stability. They also have the most sustainable product line in the industry, with so many natural resources going into their writing instruments. Now, that's how you stand the test of time. The experience, the products, and the people, they're absolutely the best, and they're deeply invested in your success. Head over to shepenko.com to start your next project today and take advantage of all that Shepenko has to offer. All right, for the opening shot today, I thought I would talk about a list that came out. And most of you know, if you've been a fan of this podcast at all, or any of the podcasts I'm on, generally I'm not a fan of lists. I've softened a little bit on that. I like lists, but I don't like rankings, especially when they're arbitrary. So the list I want to talk about today is the ASI Best Places to Work list, which I love that there are companies that are part of that. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I do enjoy that part of it. I don't know if I love the ranking because it's so subjective, like who's number one, who's number two, who's number three. I don't know how I feel about that. What I do like, though, is companies, whether they're small, medium, large, extra large, and those are ASI's terms, not mine. I do like the fact that they're recognized for being a great place to work. If you've ever worked somewhere that has been a horrible culture or just a bad place to ply your trade, you know how important it is to work not only with people you like, but environments you like as well. And so I really like this. And my favorite part about the list, and I read the whole thing, it's a great article up on ASI Central. You should absolutely take a look at it. Is they had some like tips at the end. They had 3 things, and those are the one I want to talk about. They had ingredients for the best places to work, and those are from the actual recipients of this honor. So the ingredients for best place to work, top benefits and perks that they offer, and some great parting tips. And I thought I'd share a few that really jumped out at me. And maybe it's a good time to do a self-evaluation. Are these things I'm doing in my workplace, or are these things I am not doing and maybe should consider? So here they are. So ingredients for best places to work. Consistent focus on improvement. I love that. Absolutely love that. I'll probably say that phrase 400 times today. Love that consistent focus on improvement, because if you're not growing, you're stagnant. I think we all know that. Treating people with respect, that seems to be a no-brainer, but I have worked in places where I did not feel respected, and it tends to be pretty horrible. Embracing unique personality traits and individuality. That is a really cool one. And I think, especially for me as a 56-year-old Gen Xer, I remember when I first got in the workforce, we were supposed to fit in a specific box and you had to dress a certain way and act a certain way. I love the fact that there tends to be much more open acceptance of people's individuality, because what they bring to the table is absolutely what makes them unique and what helps a company be unique. Prioritizing management approachability. That's a huge one. A lot of companies will talk about, oh, we're a family, you can come talk to me anytime. But I think we all know that can be a big, giant load of bullshit. So I love the fact that some companies are really prioritizing management approachability. The best managers are the ones that say, I don't know it all. What ideas do you have that I haven't thought of? And when you have that open approach, it really creates a collaborative work environment. And, it's the rising tide lifts all boats theory. Last one for ingredients for best places to work, creating a sense of togetherness with remote employees. I think this one is still a challenge. Obviously, everybody went remote in COVID and kind of sort of come back at this point. I still think there's a lot of hybrid employees, remote employees, making them feel part of the team is one of those basic human functions. We all want to feel that we're part of something greater. So I really love that. All right. Top benefits and perks. The first one, kind of bouncing off the last one I just said, flexible hybrid work schedule. I do think in today and in the future, that's really the way to go. The less rigidity, allowing people to work when they work best. Something I learned years ago. Had an employee at a previous company where I was running things, and I was adamant that this person worked between X and Y. And I quickly learned that they didn't do their best work between X and Y. They did it at 3 in the morning. And so why not loosen up on that? Allow that person to do the best work that they could do. What does it matter when they're doing it? So I really like that, as long as deadlines are hitting, things like that. Another benefit and perk, a formal peer-to-peer recognition program. Man, I love that. I love that. I love that, because as much as accolades and things like that are important for management, they're just as important, and I would even argue maybe more so when they come from your peers. When someone you work alongside with recognizes you for the work you do, that means the world and makes people feel very fulfilled. Once a month self-care days. I think that is phenomenal. It is so easy because a lot of us work from home. I sometimes work from home. Work's always there. So it's easy to just say, I'm just going to go in and answer that email real quick, or I'm just going to go ahead and just pop out that quick report or whatever, instead of getting that break we all need from work so that we can recharge and be better at what we do. So I love that once a month self-care day. And the last one for top benefits and perks, 3 weeks sabbatical after 5 years of employment. That blew me away. I absolutely think that is so cool that company would do that. I just think it's fantastic that, after 5 years, you've invested a measurable portion of your life working for an organization, and they say, you take 3 weeks away, whatever, go do whatever, sit at home, doesn't matter, take a sabbatical. Man, I think that's a really cool one. And I wish I had had those type of opportunities early in my career. Last one, some great parting tips. So these are going to be quick hits, and I'll actually tell you what companies shared these, because I think they're fantastic. Number one, embrace the individuality of your employees. We covered that earlier. That came from Walker Clay. Show people you care. Man, I love that. I really do. It seems simple, but you have to show people you care, not just tell them. And that came from Kaiser and Blair. Make sure your new hires are comfortable. I think we've all been in a situation where, being first day, new kid on the block, new kid at school, it feels a little awkward when you don't know where everything is. Everybody speaks in acronyms, so on and so forth. I think, and especially when people work remote so often, I think making them feel comfortable and part of the team is so critically important. That came from Williams and Associates. You can't outsource culture. It has to come from the top. Man, absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. That came from Picnic Time. I've been at places where it was do as I say, not as I do. The culture was very different for people in upper management as opposed to us worker bees. And it doesn't create a good feeling about working there. Last two, listen, but communicate back out what we are doing and why. Whoa, that's a great one. Not only listening, but explaining to everybody in the company what we are doing as an organization and why we're doing it. That came from the good people at Brilliant, and that is, well, brilliant. Last one. Every employee matters, no different than every other customer. And that came from Cap America. What I really like about that statement, so often we end up being so focused on the client experience, which is good, and making sure clients are happy and so on and so forth. That's good. But sometimes we do that at the detriment of making our associates, our internal clients, our employees feel that they matter just as much, if not more. Because when you treat employees well and you treat them as if they matter, that goes out to the overall client experience. So those are just a few things from the ASI top companies to work for list. I'd love to hear from you. What really jumped out at you at this list? What did we miss that makes a great place to work? But man, it was a really good list, and glad ASI does that. Hey, before we get to our guest, let's go ahead and pay a bill, shall we? Many people know how to build a business, but few understand not only when to sell that business, but the process involved to ensure that you find the right partner and maximize the return on your investment. Now, truly, this is where you need an expert, especially one in the branded merchandise industry, to help you decide. And that's where our good friends over at Certified Marketing Consultants come in. Jamie Watson and her team have decades of experience facilitating private company sales in the branded merchandise space. Now, to help you evaluate if it's time to sell your business, go ahead and reach out to Jamie and her team at CMC at info@certifiedmarketing.com for a confidential discussion today. All right, that's enough of me blathering on about great places to work. Why don't we go ahead and bring someone on who might be working at a great place to work? Ha ha, my guest today, he doesn't need an introduction at all. But you know what? It's Wednesday, it's tax day, and I'm feeling like wasting my time, his time, your time, and even the IRS's time if they're listening. So he has been in the branded merchandise space for 29 years and has a receding hairline to prove it. If you're on video, you can see it. He is one of the owners as well as the VP of Sales and Marketing for Printable, a distributor based in the second city of Chicago. I've known him for 25 of those 29 years, having been paired with him at a regional golf outing where we both found ourselves enjoying the 19th hole far more than the previous 18 combined. His company, the aforementioned Printable, has been perennially listed on both PPAI's Greatest Companies to Work For and ASI's Best Places to Work, which is a great source of pride for him and his teammates. In fact, they were just listed as number 3 on the ASI list released Monday in their category. In fact, it was the 8th time Printable was on the list. But we'll get to that. He's also been listed twice as a finalist in ASI's Top Sales Rep of the Year, and for 3 years running has been named to the PPAI Online 18. When he's not helping his clients with branded merch or recognizing his amazing team, he loves doing New York Times puzzles with his bride, playing pickleball with his son, snapping pics of his rescue dog to send to his daughter at college, taking Cubs baseball game, or talking Cubs baseball, I should say, with his other daughter, shopping at Costco. I have no idea why that's in the bio. Believe me, I didn't write that part, folks. Telling dad jokes and appreciating all things Beatles related. Please join me in welcoming the Mr. Rogers of the promotional products industry, because it's always a beautiful day in the podcast hood when he's around, the one and only Mitch Silver. Mitch, thank you so much for being here, man.
Dude, it is such an honor. Like I said, I've been following you for a long time now, so it's really an honor to be part of this community of yours.
Well, it's the feelings mutual. I have known each other for a very long time, but I don't think I've ever asked you, how the hell did you get into this weird little industry?
It's an interesting story. So this will
I'll
maybe come
decide.
as
Real quick,
yeah,
I
yeah,
will
yeah,
decide if it's interesting.
that's true, and you can decide if it's funny too. So, the year was 1990. Actually, it's probably not. I take that back. It was 1986.
Hmm.
I was passionate about music, and I decided in college to start a mobile DJ business. It
Okay.
actually wasn't the first time that I was performing before an audience, because actually at my bar mitzvah at age 13, I DJ'd for that party. Yes, we
You
played
DJ'd your
racquetball.
own bar mitzvah?
Yes, and I was playing Van Halen records. Can you
I
believe
would,
it?
I would, I would certainly hope so.
So I got to college, I started the mobile DJ business, and then it was quite successful. And then after my brother went to the University of Illinois with me, he said, hey, listen, I'm getting a little restless. I'd like to start a business. So what do you think I should do? And I said, well, I've got all these Post-it notes on my wall in my residence hall. They're sorority, social chairperson, fraternity, local businesses, residence
Hmm.
halls, those kinds of people.
Hmm.
Why don't you start selling them merch? And so he took, straight from the wall, those Post-it notes, and started selling them shot glasses and T-shirts and boxer shorts and all the things that we all loved and enjoyed in college. He was so successful senior year that he decided after he graduated to continue it. And he moved back to Chicago, where we're from, and situated himself on the Northwestern campus. It only took him 3 short years to realize there's not a lot of, let's just say, loyalty with 18, 19-year-olds. So at that point,
There's
he decided to
not.
grow the corporate side of the business. And that's about the time I was tired of crisscrossing the country doing change management consulting work. And so we
Boy, there's
formed
a
a
gla
partnership.
there's a glaze over term, change management consulting. Holy
Yes,
cow.
that's right. It's a tricksdidectophobia list of nonsense words.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've been focusing on corporate clients ever since. So
Love
happy
it.
to be here.
Love it. I talked about your name, top places to work, and I want to talk a little deeper into that. But the one thing that has always jumped out with me, knowing you, all of our discussions over the years, it always comes back to one thing, and that's company culture. How much of a role does that play in your success?
It's huge. In fact, I will say one of the rare things that you'll hear from a business owner, and that is, of the 11 people on the team, myself included, I would hire each and every one of them again, which is
That's
pretty
great.
unusual to say after
Yeah.
being in business for 33 years. They're all great
Yeah.
people. And I like to call my style of management, it's something you won't find in the dozens of business books out there,
Mhm.
most of which Kirby reads and rereads and posts about every day. It's very, very technical. Your listeners might appreciate that. It's called the give a shit methodology.
Okay. I love it.
Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Absolutely.
Okay. So it involves just caring about your teammates as more than just people that make the company profitable, but people who have their own personal goals, their own lives outside of work. They have their own life challenges. Like it's something we all learned in Psych 101 in school. It's called the law of reciprocity. Like if
Hmm.
you show that you care, they will care too. Not only
Absolutely.
about you, but about the success of the business. Like,
Yeah.
here's a couple examples like to show like what I'm talking about here. So one of my teammates was too tired to work out because she had two small children at home. So what did we do? We worked on buying her a treadmill desk, so sneak and exercise while she was working.
Oh, that's
Another,
fantastic.
yeah, another teammate needed to leave work early to do laundry because she didn't have one in her home, a machine. So we invested in, bought a washing machine for her. Again, happier colleagues make for happier customers in the end. Um, I know you're passionate about the topic of shoes. One of our clients, sorry, one of my teammates was actually going to her very first PPAI show in Vegas, didn't have a really good pair of shoes. And I said, let's invest in a good pair of shoes for you because you're gonna be walking so much. So that was simple. And then there was another colleague of mine who was really due for a vacation, just been working really hard. And so, we subsidized some of that vacation to Disney. So um, I really think that if you care about people, they will care back.
I couldn't agree more. When I did the little preamble part of the podcast, the opening shot, I talked about the ASI list and some of the things I took away from it. And one of the things was culture. And one of the things that really jumped out at me is something you just talked about is making sure you show your employees, your associates, you care. I think so often we as business owners are focused on the clients and making sure their experience is great. And that is super important. I don't want to discount that. But that experience from a client perspective is actually enhanced when you show your team you care, when you create an environment where they come first, because they will push that outwards, just like you're talking about.
Yeah, it sprinkles down for sure. Like,
Yeah.
a few years ago, I was at a friend's son's graduation, and I was talking to his dad, and his dad said, "You know what?" He said, "Mitch, you know what? As I get older, I realize that I'm not really in the business I used to be in when I was working. I'm in the memory business."
Yeah.
And I said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "Well, for each of the kids' graduations, my wife and I take them, each of the grandkids,
Hmm.
kids, I should say, take them to a vacation spot that they choose, and we get
Hmm.
to spend quality time together." He's like, "I'm creating memories, so when I'm gone, the kids will remember their time with
Yeah.
me." And while we're a for-profit business, like
Of
I
course.
can't do that entirely,
Yeah.
but it can be a way of acknowledging people to people that, you know, we need to help them build memories too and create
Hmm.
life outside of work for them.
Yeah.
Um, people are people, so why should it be?
You
You
and I
thought I
should
was going
get
to go with
along
that.
so awfully, is how I would answer that question.
This, this is
Um,
true.
that's really great. One of the things when I was going through like the things that jumped out at me on that ASI list as a top benefit and perk, and I forget the company that put this down there, is they give their employees a 3 week sabbatical after 5 years of employment. I thought, man, that is freaking brilliant because when you invest a measurable portion of your life into an organization and they are willing to give some of that back, not just here's an extra week of vacation. It is 3 weeks of sabbatical. I think that's amazing.
It is, yeah. And I think, we do something similar to that, although it's really an ongoing program. So we have what we call a results only work environment. So people get the freedom to work and get stuff done whenever that means they need to get stuff
Yeah.
done. So sometimes it's working late, sometimes it's coming early, sometimes it's working the weekends. Now
Mhm.
there's of course core hours that we all work, but
Sure.
this idea of giving people unlimited PTO seems a little scary at first, but the truth is, when you're on a
Well,
small team and everyone relies on one another, you definitely know when someone's not carrying their weight and taking advantage of the program.
yeah.
So I think that and having clear quarterly success plan goals for people
Mhm.
really keeps the train on the tracks and doesn't have people abuse that.
I'm glad you mentioned that results only philosophy because I had that written down. That did jump out at me, and I wasn't sure what it meant. Now that I do know, and I shared this earlier, so I'm being the redundant man of redundancy a little bit, but it took me years to unwire my brain as a Gen Xer that you work between X and Y, and that's when you do it. Because I had an employee that I would force to come in and work from A to B, and they were miserable, and
Hmm.
they were not productive during those hours. They were night owl, and
Hmm.
I had to ask myself finally, what do I care when they work as long as deadlines are hit and the work is good, if not great? What do I care? And so I've really moved off of that. So I love
Hmm.
that results only philosophy. I like that you put a term to it. I just said I've evolved.
Yeah, and I would say like the other thing is you can't just have results without having measurable ways of looking at those results. So we
100%.
have these things in place called QSPs, quarterly success plans. So basically, let me just explain real quickly. So
Sure.
there's like four things in each person's QSP, and literally we review them quarterly. And keep in mind, this is employee driven. So it's not me saying or a manager saying you need to do this. It's
Hmm.
them coming up with successes they want to have during the quarter that at the end we can high five each other and say, look, you set this goal for yourself. It's measurable and we got to it.
Yeah.
Like that's great. And we celebrate that as a team too. It's not just individuals. So
Right.
there's key work objectives. So what is it that you do in your job mostly? So for our sales assistants, like a key work objective might be order entry. So I
Mhm.
need to get 95% of the time, I need to be responsive to the requests of the salespeople I support, or 98% of my orders need to be accurate. So the next section is things I want to get better at to be more effective on my job. So that might be for a marketing assistant, it might be like make 3 posts about the sales team that show the pics of products they think are hot right now.
Hmm.
The third section would be company values I want to focus on. So we have 6 core values, and each quarter, each employee needs to pick something they're going to focus on. So, for example, production assistant might say, "I want to make sure I save the company money by using coupons worth at least $400."
Right.
And finally, the fourth section, and this is really what's unusual about the way we do this: things I want to get better at in my personal life.
Hmm.
So people are actually committing in writing to things they want to get better. So for example, team member might say, I want to read at least 2 fiction books this quarter.
Yeah.
Or I want to work out 3 times a week during the quarter. Or one of my coworkers said, I want to learn how to cook Japanese food. So she listed 2 dishes she wanted to learn how to cook. So like, what do all these 4 sections have in common? They have very specific measurable numbers attached
Yeah.
to them. So at the end of the quarter, we can high five each other and say, you did it.
I love it. You've clearly, and again, as long as I've known you, it's always about company culture. And something I don't think we've ever talked about, though. I'm a big believer that hiring is at best 50-50. I tell
Yeah.
people all the time when you're interviewing somebody, remember that is the best version of that human you will ever see. And so, especially when you're in a hiring position and you need somebody, man, you're drowning. You need somebody. It's human nature. You start saying, I can live with that. That doesn't bother me that much.
Mm-hmm.
But that negative behavior, that thing that kind of sticks in your craw, will only amplify if they come part of your team. So I want to ask you, have you ever had any misses in hiring? Not to the point where somebody's a culture killer, but it just became pretty apparent after 3, 6 months, whatever it is, that they don't really fit into the culture. And if so, what do you do about that?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean,
Yeah, it
having
is.
done this as many
I
years,
I ask the questions others are scared to ask,
yes,
Mitch.
you are the
I
Barbara
want the
Walters.
real answers.
You're the Anderson Cooper of the promotional industry. Um, let's see. Well, I think we've always said we believe in immediate and direct, honest communication. So I think when someone starts to fall off, you need to at least not be afraid to have those conversations.
Yeah.
My personality is one to avoid conflict. So this is really hard for me. And I've really worked hard at this over the years. Um, but I think if you're, we have this saying in my family, clear is kind. And
Hmm.
if you can just be clear with people, say, here's what I'm seeing, here's what I'd like to see changed, then you give people the chance to change themselves. And if they don't, then ultimately they have fired themselves, right? If you give
Absolutely.
them the chance. So
I
um, I,
I have. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say one other thing, like if you have core values in your company, which I hope that
Hmm.
everyone listening has, for example, we have six. Like if you're looking at those core values when you're hiring people and say, is this person going to be resourceful and continuously learn?
Hmm.
Well, then you generally have a better chance of getting a good hire from the beginning. So that's something to think about.
Agreed. And I have what I call so I've made great hires. I've made
Yeah.
terrible hires. And there's no rhyme or reason. You just sometimes, I've never hired someone like, oh man, this is going to be bad. But I've always hired people and thought they were going to succeed. And so I always felt I had what I call, so you have your little acronyms. I've got mine. I've got my rope theory. And
Hmm.
rope means you give every employee rope. What does that rope represent? It means training. It means support. It means giving them the tools they need to do their job effectively. It means having open, honest communications, having direct measurables, all those things. That's the rope.
Hmm.
It's management's job to give every employee the rope. It's the
Hmm.
employee's job to decide what to do with it. Some of them will just climb up the rope. Some of them will use that rope and pull other people along with them. And unfortunately, some of them will hang themselves.
Yeah, I thought you were
And
gonna say
that's
that.
the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I like that. That's really good. I mean, yeah, I mean, everyone should have a chance to succeed. So if you put them in a system where they've got goals to achieve and they've got mentors and they've got systems and processes, like early on in our business, it's so easy to focus just on sales. But the
hmm,
truth is what's behind the sales, the back shop operations, the support, the systems, the software, that's really what helps people succeed.
absolutely.
Important. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I love it.
Yeah.
Online 18. So you are on it again. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thanks.
What jumps out at me is you eschew every other social media platform but LinkedIn. Why only LinkedIn?
That's a good question. I feel like our clients, the ones that are really marketers, event planners, sales professionals,
Hmm.
that's where they're congregating. Um, and so I feel like if you consistently write in a way that positions you as a thought leader and an expert in your field and knowledgeable about the things you're talking about and sharing experiences what you're actually hearing on the front lines, I feel like that's a way to build long-term credibility with people on LinkedIn.
I
I don't
agree.
feel like that happens on the other platforms. I feel the other platforms are more like quick hit. Here's my latest doodad. I want to sell this to you. Whereas I think LinkedIn, people look at it as more of just a platform for people who want to learn and grow.
I think you can use the other platforms for what you're talking about and how you use
Hmm.
LinkedIn. I think it's more difficult.
Hmm.
But what I really like about your answer is you're going where you feel your audience is. It's not I'm comfortable with Facebook, so I'm going to stay on Facebook. It's hey, my people are on LinkedIn. That's where I'm going to be. And I really, really like that. With the
Yeah, I mean, I think
PPA,
I think
yeah,
I was gonna say like, and I think the keys to being on LinkedIn or really any platform, the first thing you have to do is, and this is marketing 101, is like, who is your target audience?
yeah,
And if you know your target audience is congregating there, that's where you should be. Like for me in my sales role, those are event planners, office administrators, marketing professionals, human resource professionals. So
right.
when I write a post, I'm generally thinking about those audiences and what they would be most interested in.
But so many people do not take the time or expend the energy to figure out who their target audience is, especially on the distributor side. They think, well, it's the great lie we've all been told when we got in this industry on the distributor side, especially. I was a distributor for 15 years. It's, hey, everybody buys promotional products. And what they're kind of
Hmm.
implying is everybody is your potential client.
Hmm.
And nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah. Early on, I think it's that's fair to sort of grab as much as you can to learn and grow and build
Yes.
your organization. But yes, once you've established yourself, that's what you need to
Well,
focus on.
once you figure out what you're good at, I mean, we all sold, pens to our local dry cleaners and screwed them up and had to find a new local dry cleaner to go to. That's how you learn in this industry. Let's talk events. Did you have something you were about to say something? I thought.
I was just going to say one other thing, like on this
Yeah.
topic, is for those of your listeners that are the ones in charge of content for whatever platform it may be, like And I think Kirby's actually talked about this too. Like the key is to batch your writing. Like if you feel inspiration first thing in the morning, make that your time to write 2 or 3 posts and then stagger them. I mean, there's all sorts of systems in place where you don't have to post everything that you just write then and there. So I think this idea of batching, and looking and listening to industry podcasts like yours and reading industry publications like The Counselor and PPB actually gives you inspiration and thoughts. And if you can do that in one sitting, then that really helps you be more efficient.
100%. I actually, my session at PPAI Expo this past January, it was about being a solopreneur, which I am. So I I do it all, whether I
Hmm.
want to or not. And I talk about, when I batch, sometimes I batch blogs I write. I
Right.
sometimes batch podcasts and things like that, and it's important to do, um, because I'm not always inspired. There are days. I wrote this in a blog the other week. It's a challenging time for my family, aging parents, and the things that go along with that. And there's some days I'm just useless at work. There's some days I'm laser focused and I'm efficient and I'm great and I'm popping. But there's some days I just feel like, gosh, there's so much. I'm overwhelmed by life, and that's part of life. And so by batching that, it allows me to give myself the grace to say, I'm not feeling it today. I can't today, but everything is done, so that's okay.
Hmm. Yeah, it's the way to get through the day.
So, talking about events, you're a distributor. I want to know the best networking event you've ever been to and what made it that way.
Hmm.
Yeah,
You're
like I
talking
said, I ask the questions people are afraid to ask, Mitch.
you are the Scott Pelley of podcasting. It's absolutely
Wow, wow.
um
Fun fact, growing up in
compliment.
Dallas, Scott Pelley was the local news anchor on the
Wow,
CBS affiliate. So
wow,
I know Scott Pelley. I don't know him, like,
right. And
know
look
of
where he
him.
is on Sunday nights. Um, so when you say networking, are you talking about industry specific or client facing, trying to build your business? What are you thinking?
I'm not thinking anything. I don't, I
Well,
mean,
industry
answer it
specific
both
events,
ways.
that's easier to answer. Industry specific events, like
Hmm.
I think, what Mark and Catherine and the team
Sure.
over there at Common SKU have created in terms of SKU Camp, that is sort of a one in a million type event. I mean, you're rubbing elbows with other business owners. You're not afraid to open and share ideas. You are not holding your cards close to your chest like we used to do in the olden days. Like you're
Yeah.
sharing everything. So I think that's kind of a win. I haven't yet attended, but I know that Jason Lukash and
Hmm.
Mike Simzak have created this event taking place in Moab. It sounds like it might be more of a campy kind of thing, but similar in concept. Um, but yeah, I think most industry events. I mean, who can forget the mixer, the promo kitchen mixer at Vegas? That's always a great time as well.
Don't forget promocations.
Oh,
Just
promocations.
kidding. I'm just kidding. No, you mentioned some great ones, and I'm going to Rupt Summer Camp this year. I've never been. I'm speaking there, and I'm looking forward to that. So I think that's a really great industry event. Hey, last question I have, and then I know you have some things you want to cover as well.
Hmm.
You are a known podcast junkie in the industry in a good way. And you've always been very supportive of me and when I was doing podcasts with Kirby. So thank you for that.
Of course.
But you listen to them at 1.5 times speed, which melts my brain. Why, how, what advantage does that have? And I did. And will you listen to this at 1.5 speed?
Well, to be fair, in the most recent iOS update, you can now be very specific. So I'm only at 1.2.
Oh
So it's
gosh,
not quite as fast.
that's even worse.
Listen, I've got like a 25-minute car ride each way to work.
Okay.
I try to see what I can fit in that time. And so listening at that speed seems to be just enough to still process it. Although I have to say your theme song sounds a lot different at 1.5 than it does at 1.
I would think my voice sounds like I'm on helium too. So do you get out an abacus before your commute? Say, I got 25 minutes. Let me check Waze. Okay, it's 26 minutes today. Let me check the podcast I want to listen to. Make sure it's exactly 26
Yeah,
minutes.
I have to
Is it that
solve
specific?
for X every morning. It's an algebra challenge. My son,
I,
who's in high school, helps me with that part of it.
I love it. All right. Now I know you said you had stuff you wanted to talk to me about. I am
Yeah,
the
just
floor is yours. It's as they say, it is your dime, your dance floor.
very nice. I think the one thing your listeners might be interested in is, you know, really post-pandemic, there's been this movement away from in-site visits to clients, doing outside sales. You know, this next generation, Gen Z, is really less interested in meeting you face to face. And so you've got to, as an organization that sells, you have to come up with inside sales strategies that sort of
Mhm.
build the connection that you would have if you were doing face to face, but do it at an arm's length. And I think that's one of the things that our team's done pretty well. Following that same law of reciprocity, like we work really hard on building relationships. And one of the ways we do that is we share of ourselves. So, for example, if my family goes on a trip to Yellowstone, I may take a picture and then send it to a client and say, "Hey, just got back from Yellowstone. Have you ever been? What's on your
Love
bucket
that.
list? Tell me more about what you like. And by the way, do you have any merch projects coming up?" So it's kind of like a soft sell in the
Yeah.
background. And that's worked really well. Like I think the other few things that people really are passionate about are pets and the
Oh,
NFL.
yeah.
And if we can learn somebody's pet name, boy, you can start sharing pictures of your pet. I mean, you can really tug at their heartstrings every time you
Yeah.
email them. And the NFL thing, we do something really interesting. Remember those small little plastic helmets we used to
You're
get?
darn tootin' I do.
We collected as kids. So I
Yeah.
bought a bunch of those off of eBay.
Hmm.
And I've got all the NFC teams, all the AFC teams. So when I learn of a client's penchant for a certain team, I usually surprisingly send them one
I
of
love that.
those little
That's
helmets for
very
the desk.
cool. Reminds me of those. Remember the pencils too? Remember the NFL pencils we had in school?
Yes. That was before the Tennessee Titans even existed, probably.
I'm not a Titans fan.
Okay.
I don't
Tech
recognize them. They're the Houston
Cowboys.
Oilers to
Cowboys.
me.
Yeah,
I'm a
I should
Cowboys
know.
fan. Sadly,
You
now
know,
I'm a Cowboys fan.
speaking of football, one of the other things we did this year, which was really fun, is Picnic Time has a line of licensed products from
Yep.
NFL and all the other leagues. And so once we knew it was the Seahawks versus the
Hmm.
Patriots, we looked in our database of all clients in Boston, all clients in Seattle, and
Hmm.
sent them a serving tray for their Super Bowl party with their team logo on it.
Yeah.
So just another way of building that relationship at an arm's length.
Yeah, I love that. And there has been a move more to the inside sales, the arm's length, what you're talking about. But I'm a big believer of the pendulum. It will come
Hmm.
back, and I'm already seeing it. My one of my sons is in Alabama. He's a sports broadcaster for Radio Alabama, but part of that responsibility is he has to sell sponsorships to the community and sell to some of the school districts itself to get them on Radio Alabama. And he is almost insistent we need to meet in person, and that's coming from him, and he's 23. So I
Hmm.
think the pendulums will swing back again. What's the old saying? What's old is new again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wait, I think somebody. Oh, wait.
Oh,
Oh, I'm being handed a. Oh,
oh,
look at this, a rapid fire for Bill Petrie.
oh my gosh! A rapid fire. Okay.
I
I
mean, I
hope
don't
there's no
know of all
wrong
the years I've been
answers.
listening if a guest has ever given you a rapid fire, but
I've had a couple, but it's very few and far between. But you know
okay,
what? I believe I'm up to the challenge, Mitch. I don't even know what the
okay,
topic is.
you're ready. There is no topic. It's
There,
just it's
whoa!
about as random as the podcast is. So
I
ready?
love it. I love it.
All right,
This make
shoot.
before you go, I want to make sure you're just going to give me a choice in either or, and I just pick it. There's no
Right,
wrong answers, correct?
right. And as you know, there are no wrong answers, but really there are some wrong answers. But
All right, let's go.
all right, concert at Red Rocks with Danny Rosen,
Yep,
or a concert at the Sphere with Danny Rosen.
Red Rocks. I think that's a more pure musical experience. I've never seen a show at either place. Both are bucket list items, but I think the show at Red Rocks is more about the music. I think the show at Sphere is much more about the production and the overall just in your face visual experience.
Agreed. Red Rocks, put it on your list for sure. In
Yep.
fact, my son's very first concert when he was 9 was at Red Rocks. His very first concert.
Very
Now he
cool.
was on his phone playing Crossy Road, but he still
Sure.
got to be at Red Rocks. So
My first concert was last row of the old Reunion Arena in Dallas, seeing the gambler himself, Kenny Rogers, with the opener, Gallagher, the watermelon smashing comedian.
what a combo. And that was before
Yeah,
the plastic surgery, I'm assuming, right?
I think it might be.
Yeah. All right, number two, pontificating about women of promo with Kirby, or debating the merits of a PPAI or ASI top 10 list with Kirby.
Gonna have to be women of promo. I always enjoy that. It's one of those lists. We don't rank anybody. I don't like ranked lists because they're just arbitrary for the most part. But that's become real important to me, and it just started as a lark. I was sitting around and thinking there's not a lot of great recognition for women in our industry, and thought it was time to do something about it. And it's actually evolved into something that matters, which is no one's more surprised than me. So no, absolutely, hands down, women in promo.
I always love that episode. Chastising Pantone for their choice of color of the year, or castigating someone on the promotional products Facebook professionals page for making a negative post about a supplier without first reaching out to them.
That's a tough one. I'm going to go castigating the dumb box on the promotional products professionals page for being a dumb box.
I would agree with you on there. Playing a round of golf at Augusta National or the old course at St. Andrews?
Old course at St. Andrews, only because I'm about 95% Scotsman.
Oh, that's beautiful. So the old course, a little bit of history, was built in 1764.
Yeah.
The new course,
Yeah.
1895.
Yeah. I know. It's crazy.
I did get a chance to play the new course. I'm not, as you know, I'm not much of a golfer, but I was there. I'm like, I got to play. Borrowed someone's clubs, lost 3 balls on the first hole in the ficus, and stumbled my way across the finish line.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
Wow.
Number 6 or number 5, on a C or on an R?
Honestly, I've never understood the duplication there. Again, our industry has a long and rich history of not only confusing our clients, but confusing ourselves.
True, very true. A backpack collection or shoe collection?
Backpack collection. I have shockingly moved away from I do have a lot of shoes, but I actually am doing this new thing because I'm 56. So again, I've collected a lot of things as we all have, and I'm tired of the clutter. So I now spend 15 minutes a day at the end of my workday to do one task to try to declutter. So yesterday it was shorts. I have way too many shorts, just pairs of shorts. So I threw away 8 pairs of shorts. I had extra time. I threw away 6 pairs of shoes.
Nice. It sounds like you're nesting in your empty nesting
Yeah.
house.
So backpack, 100%. I love the backpack.
Awesome. David Lee Roth or David Hasselhoff?
That is
You
the
thought I was going with
most,
Sammy Hagar, didn't you?
yeah, that is just the most bizarre juxtaposition of Davids in the history of ever. Have to go with Diamond Dave. As much as I appreciate the Hoff for not only his proclivity to eat a hamburger on a floor drunk, but also his musical stylings on the Berlin Wall, going to have to go with Diamond David Lee Roth.
Excellent. The penultimate question. A drink with Jack and Coke or a little ditty about Jack and Diane?
Uh, I will go a drink of Jack and Coke Zero. Jack and Coke Zero.
Excellently played. And last but not least, paying the bills with a sponsor read at the beginning of Between Two Brands or doing a sponsor read at the end of Between Two Brands?
Well, I just want to say let's give our friends at Shapenko a huge thanks for sponsoring this fine broadcast. For over 90 years and 4 generations of family ownership, they have defined stability in the promotional product space by caring about the success of their distributor partners. Head over to shapenko.com to start your next project today. I hope that answered your question, Mitch.
It did. Thank you for having me, Bill.
Hey, thank you for being on. We'll have to do it again sometime, and always appreciate your friendship and support, man. Thank you.